should get pretty close to 90, 91 for the high. The real zone of very severe weather is going to be southeast Missouri and southern Illinois, so we're going to be close to that. We have to keep an eye on the sky. Friday night, clear skies, windy and 59. The weekend looks good. Saturday, sunny, breezy, and cooler, 78. Sunday, partly sunny and 80. I'm meteorologist Dave Murray on 104.1 FM. KMOX.
We've got some clouds. It is 85 downtown at the Arch. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
Come on, let's get going now.
From KMOX Sports.
We're primed and ready. All day, baby. Hey, let's go.
This is the Gray Bar Sports Open Live. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. On 104.1 FM, KMOX.
Here we go. Welcome in. It's Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. My name is Matt Pauley, and I've got you for 2 hours tonight. We will take you until 8 o'clock this evening, talking all things sports. We'll talk a lot of Cardinals baseball, obviously. Off day for the Cardinals. Really good start to a 9-game, 3-city road trip where they are 5-1 through their first 6 games. 3 more games to go. They're going to match up against Kansas City coming up tomorrow for a 3-game series against the Royals. So we'll talk a lot of Cardinals baseball, continue some of those conversations we were having during the Redbird Rush Hour. Bernie Miklasz is going to join us in about 10 minutes or so. We'll get his take on how real what we're seeing right now from the Cardinals is and what the areas are that this team still needs to shore up if they want to continue to be a consistently good team for the final 3 quarters of the season. We'll talk a little City SC. That was bad last night. You're up 2-0 and you give up 2 goals after the 70th minute. And I always put the disclaimer on when I talk soccer. I'm not the expert. I can't sit here and tell you what's going on. But then some of the things that are being said after, like what happened on the field was bad. And then you hear some of the comments that are made by individuals afterward as well. Roman Berkey talking about the team losing their way. Folks from Kansas City saying we wished we played City every week. Like, just bad stuff. Bad stuff. Not good. Team hasn't won in a really, really, really long time. And you start to take a step back and look at the totality of the organization and just try to figure out where it's going wrong. And, there's still a lot of soccer left to be played this year. They can still turn things around. They've obviously got talented players who are not playing up to their level yet. Like, it's not, I don't think this is a championship contending team, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think they are good enough to be a team that's a playoff team in MLS, things like that. But you just think about like the totality of the history of this organization doing what they did in the first year under Bradley Carnell, the Carnell thing not working out. So they move on from him very quickly. In the second season, when they had a slow start, they go to John Hackworth. The team was entertaining when Hackworth was coaching, especially after they made the player, acquired those players out of the transfer window last year. Like, even if they weren't winning games, even if they were giving up more goals than they would like to have given up, at least they were scoring goals. They were playing an entertaining brand of soccer. And then they make the decision not to keep Hackworth, even though it was an obvious step up in their level of play going from Carnell to Hackworth. They make this move, and it just feels like everybody is underachieving. And is there something to be said about injuries and fitness and guys not being able to go a full 90 and that? Like, I'm not trying to be dismissive of the realities of the situation. I want to be fair when I talk about it. But you can't lose that game last night. You can't lose that game last night. There are times where the Cardinals lose games. There's times where the Blues lose games. And I sit here and tell you, you can't lose that game. That is a game that you can't lose. Well, last night for City, that's a game you can't lose. And from an accountability standpoint, like, who is to blame at this point? Because if you're having a really good season and you lose that game, then I can be a talking head and I can talk all I want about how you shouldn't lose that game. But when you lose a game you shouldn't lose, and it's happening in the middle of a wretched season, then that's when things start to, it's like, okay, so let me apply it to baseball, because like the Colorado Rockies are having a terrible, terrible, terrible season. They are setting historical records for how bad they are. They had a manager who is a very highly respected baseball man in Buddy Black. And even though the team wasn't winning, it never really felt like his job was on the line. And then they lose to the Padres 21-0, and 36 hours, he doesn't have a job anymore. It was a terrible performance in a terrible season. So that's what I always keep an eye out for. When you're thinking about an organization potentially making changes, when you have a terrible performance inside of a terrible season, when a terrible season in its own right isn't probably enough to prompt major changes, but then you have that single terrible performance, is that enough? And I'm not calling for anybody's job. I don't know enough about Olaf Melberg and everything going on, but I just know yesterday, that's a game you can't lose. And it happens in a season where they're not playing very good in the first place and they're not winning many games. So we'll talk a little bit more about City SC. Nate Bukaty, who is going to be on the call this upcoming weekend as they get back at it. Tough week to have a performance like that because you don't have a lot of time to try to fix things. You don't have a whole lot of time to get those legs back right. They're going to be back in action coming up on Saturday. So Nate Bukaty's going to join us. Next hour, we'll talk a little bit about the Battlehawks. They've been playing some really good football here recently. They have seemingly completely and totally righted the ship, which is really good to see. And Mike Rose, who's a really good defensive player for the Battlehawks, he is going to join us at about 7:20. So that's an idea of what's going to be going on the program today. As always, if you want to chime in on anything that we are talking about, you can do so. Multiple ways to get connected with the program. You can call or text 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. That's how you call or text. You can tweet at me at Matt Pauley on air, MattPauley on air. You can leave a comment in the chat if you are watching the video stream of the program. We are available on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Would encourage you, if you ever want to watch the show, just head to the KMOX Sports YouTube. And the other thing to do, if you like and follow along on the KMOX Sports YouTube, then every time we go live, you get the happy little notification, and you can just log right in and watch along with the program. And it's not just Sports Open Line. It's also the Extra Innings Show, which we do after Cardinals games. A lot of people don't. I still get this every once in a while. People say, I didn't really. Okay, so when the network post-game show ends, we have like something that says, this is the post-game. It's out, and I'm like wrapping up. That's when we're going out to all the 150 plus stations across the Cardinal Radio Network. When that gets done, we're not done on KMOX. We have more, and that's when we take like calls and comments and all that sort of stuff. I've heard from people like, I always turn off the radio when the network thing ends. No, there's still more coming up after that. So if you follow the video on the KMOX Sports, you get the notification when that goes live, when Sports on Sunday Morning goes live, when Gas House Gang goes live. Multiple things connected to KMOX Sports that you can consume on a daily and nightly basis. We'll take a break. When we return, we are going to be joined by Bernie Miklas. He's with us in just a moment. This is a Gray Bar Sports Open Line on KMOX.
Why do the national tax resolution firms need the tiny fine print at the bottom of all their TV ads? Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. You don't hear fast-talking disclaimers in our ads because the claims we make are 100
fast and for top dollar. 314-336-1991. Go to thegomanteam.com.
News, talk, cars. 104.1 FM KMOX.
It's Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. My name is Matt Pauley. Have you till 8 o'clock this evening. We are talking all things Cardinals baseball. We'll get into a few other things as well between now and 8 o'clock. It is one of my favorite 10, 15 minutes of every single week when we get to be joined by Bernie Miklasz. You read him, you watch him over at Sports Hub STL. He is also part of the Cardinals Territory podcast along with Katie Wu. He joins us right now. Bernie, always great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Matt, I'm back at you, man. I look forward to doing this with you once a week at Sports Open Line. Thanks as always for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So your Redbird Review column today, I think, addresses the question that a lot of Cardinals fans and a lot of the narrative around this team is in place right now. People are trying to figure out, is what we're seeing from the Cardinals legit or not? And you break down various aspects, various players, things like that, and would encourage people to read that for themselves at sportshubstl.com. But I do think it's an interesting question because there seems to be a contingent of people that are just sitting here wondering, okay, is this team actually better than what they thought it was going to be coming into the season?
Yeah, well, I have to say this. Like, I'll put it to you this way. They're going to have to prove this, right? Because we've been around a long time, and I think that the way they've played, their record since they put the bullpen back together again, starting on April 25th, which was the turning point of the season, they've had the best record in baseball. Best record in the National League since then, and since April 30th, best record in baseball. They're also 10-3 in May. And the bullpen was a really big deal for this because they weren't winning close games. They were losing one-run games. They were squandering leads all over the place. They were getting blown up. And so once they fixed the bullpen, and I know that there's some kind of like local ordinance, we're not allowed to praise Ollie Marmol. So, but no, Marmol and Dusty Blake did a heck of a job on the fly, retooling that bullpen in a hurry. And this bullpen's been great, and that's been the foundation. So that was the weakest part of the team. Now it's the strongest part of the team. So once they got that fixed, and I think it'll stay fixed unless there's a bunch of injuries, everything else falls into place because they already had a good offense. They already had a top 10 offense. Their rotation was solid. I mean, it's not spectacular, but it's solid. And you got a great defense behind them. So everything else was in proper working order and really at a good level, except the bullpen just kind of washed it all away because they were just losing so many leads and losing so many games because of it. So once they patched that up, I don't believe that what they have done since that time, I don't think it's a fluke. I mean, I think it's a real thing. I mean, with a really bad bullpen, they were 10-15 on April the 23rd. There was only one team in the National League worse than them at that time. But it just shows you how important baseball bullpens are. So, gosh, everything just kind of snapped into place once they got that corrected. So, when you say, well, are they for real? I think we all agree that this is a better offense than last year's offense. And the amazing thing about it is, of course, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman haven't done much. Alec Burleson, it took him a month and a half to get going. They didn't have Herrera for 30 games. And yet I looked at it today. The Cardinals are in the top 10 in major leagues in runs per game, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS. I mean, it's a top 9 offense in the majors. Last year, the offense was terrible. So, the question is always going to be sustainability. I mean, can you substantiate as well as you've played later? Can you validate that? And that's the question. But I totally reject the premise that somehow this is a big fluke. It's not a fluke. It's just that you don't judge teams totally, based on the last 19, 20 games. You need to see it longer than that. I think that's the fair answer. I do.
I think it's interesting how they fixed the bullpen because when things were going poorly, there were a lot of people saying, okay, do you start putting the things that are working in different spots to utilize them better? Do you stop with this one inning thing for Helsley? Do you use Maton and Leahy a little bit differently? They essentially reject that. They continue to use those guys the way they've been using them, but then they commit to Steven Matz. They find a guy like Gordon Graceffa, who at least for the moment seems like somebody you can trust. As they work Jojo Romero back, Bernie, I think but nobody's talking about this. Go look at not just what he's doing lately, but how they're using him lately. Maybe he'll come in with 1 out and he'll be asked to get 2 outs, and he's not being asked to come back out for a second inning of work. So they're putting him in a position to have success, and that's going to get him on the pathway. I just think it's fun for me, and maybe I'm a baseball nerd, so no other people don't want to do this, but it's fun for me, like breaking down and doing a postmortem on the steps they took to get the bullpen to back being effective.
Well, they had to get Fernandez down to Memphis because it just was a lost cause at that point. And I thought maybe they stayed with him a little bit too long. But once they decided it was go time, he's down in Memphis, and then they started retooling everything. You nailed all the. They also found a flaw with Jojo Romero in his delivery, and so they made a mechanical change, and he's got a little more velo on his fastball. They really gave Chris Roycroft a great assignment to work on down in Memphis, and he's been, I think he's a different pitcher since he came back up because he's got anchor ball back, and gosh, he throws hard. He's got to keep the ball down. And then, the other thing is that Kyle Leahy is not just a good reliever; he's a great reliever. He is having an unbelievable season. And when you have a guy like that who can, it's like Bruce Sutter stuff in terms of, Whitey Herzog never hesitated to let him pitch more than 1 inning. And I don't live in the past, but my point is Kyle Leahy, to his credit, I mean, he's got a pretty big percentage of his relief appearances go for more than an inning. And here's a guy that's holding left-handed hitters. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's holding left-handed hitters below 100 in terms of batting average, and right-handed hitters don't do much against him either. I mean, he's just a remarkable story. So when you have a guy, you cross your fingers that he stays healthy and all that, but where you can slot him in any kind of way you want, high leverage, a guy that'll give you 2 innings, like somewhere in the middle innings. You don't have to worry about platoon split. Well, we can't put him up there against left-handers. Rob Thompson, the Phillies manager, walked right into that the other night. I was kind of laughing. It's like, oh, they brought Leahy in, the right-hander. Well, I'm gonna empty the bench. We're gonna get all our left-handed hitters, and it's like, dude. Left-handed hitters are batting like 0.83 against them. What are you doing? So, but see, he messes with the opposing dugout because they don't believe he's that good against left-handed batters, but he is. He's great against them.
That was my favorite way that the bullpen was used this year, that first game against Philadelphia, because you get 7 outs out of Leahy, which was incredible. You get Romero in there. Leahy he was running out of gas there at the end. You get Romero to get 1 out, and then you get to Helsley. Like, it doesn't always have to be Leahy, Maton, Helsley. Like, you can do things a little different every once in a while, and to go and admittedly Maton wasn't available that night, so that's why they did it that way. But to have a weapon like Leahy, who you can get 7 outs from, which that's just a unicorn type of performance from leverage relievers these days. That's incredible.
And Matz is the same way. As long as he's going to be in the bullpen, we saw that. We saw that a couple times recently where he goes more than an inning, or he'll get like the final out or 2 in 1 inning, and then he'll return for the next inning. And I know he took the loss yesterday in that first game, but listen,
he was fine.
I can't be hard on him. Yeah. I mean, it was a 2-1 game. The offense didn't click in that game. He's not perfect, but he has been a really valuable piece in the bullpen because he's also really really versatile. The number of ways you can use him.
There was also a ground ball that resulted in a hit when the infield was in. Another ball that was just placed between the infielder and the outfielder, soft contact off the bat. If we're judging Matz off like expected, what he did yesterday was perfectly fine.
No doubt about it. Another thing I like about this team, and I was talking about this with Katie Wu, an hour and a half ago or so. It's like this team offensively, and let's just keep it on the offense. This team has got a lot of guys who are rising stars, and it's got a lot of charisma. Mm-hmm. And they're confident. They're kind of brash. They have a ball playing, but they're incredibly competitive. They don't back off like yesterday. Offense lays an egg in the first game. They come back, they're down 5-1 after 1 inning in the night game. And it's like, so what do? Well, no problem, boys. We got this. They outscore the Phillies 13-2 the rest of the way. I mean, and so when you look at Mason Wynn, you look at Vic, and this is in no order, Mason Wynn and Victor Scott, and you look at Ivan Herrera, and you look at Brendan Donovan, you look at Nootbaar, you even look at Contreras because he's sort of like reborn because he's a first baseman now. And he's much better than I would say 90% of Cardinals fans thought he would be. He's been great down there. And he went through that awful thing earlier in the season where he just couldn't hit. but he has just been going bananas the last 6 weeks or so. So the point being, you look at all those guys, and there's star power all over the place. Now, cynics will say, "What do you mean star power? I don't see Ohtani out there. I don't see Judge." Well, I'm not saying superstar Hall of Famers, but this is a young crew for the most part, and all of them, you can tell, man, they got charisma, they got swag, they'll strut it, they're flashy, but they're also really smart baseball people. I didn't think last year's team, in terms of the position players, I didn't think it had much star power at all. In fact, I thought it had very little. I think they're loaded with it this year. Rising star type guys.
Yeah. It was a boring team last year outside of Mason Wynn and maybe seeing Ryan Helsley pitch the ninth.
It kind of was, unless somebody would get hot for a while, and now gosh, Burleson's starting to hit. That makes them even better. Hey, Matt, how good would this offense be? And again, I'm not like putting it on them like, I'm not ready to like write them off as failures, but I don't know how long they can stick with them either, Walker and Gorman. But what would happen if those guys even were average offensively? How good would this offense be?
They'd be top 5 at that point. And what one of the and we'll let you go on this, Bernie. One of the narratives I think we need to keep an eye out for is if Burleson continues to hit and they focus on Herrera as being the DH, then all of a sudden Gorman and Walker have a really hard time getting into the lineup.
I agree with you. That day is coming soon. So that's the tough thing, because we talk about a runway season, and I get it, and they're still trying to do it to some extent. But at some point, you just like, well, wait a minute, you have a better team than maybe even you thought. So how do you, what's the priority? You're gonna have a chance to win and shock Cardinals fans and shock baseball, and you got a chance to. You're one game behind the Cubs right now. They have twice the size of payroll that you do. At some point, do you just say, well, wait a minute now? We actually have a chance here, so we're just going to go with our best guys. Don't you think that decision, if they continue to play well, don't you think that decision's coming?
Yeah, I don't think it's right now, but I don't think we're a month plus away. Absolutely, and as you approach the trade deadline, I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I think so. So anyway, it's always great being on with you, man.
Yeah, and Bertie, before we let you go, can you tell us a little bit about Saliga Heating and Cooling?
Absolutely, Matt, Pauley, thank you. Saliga Heating and Cooling is a Daikin comfort dealer. Daikin comfort dealer. And Saliga Heating and Cooling, man, it needs no introduction, but I'm always happy to talk about them. They've been serving St. Louis since 1927. The same family of Saligas, Dan Saliga, fourth generation owner operator, still offering free estimates and financing options, still has the best and most trustworthy customer service in St. Louis. So they can do all the standard stuff that you would expect, but they also have some other services, like they can improve your indoor air quality. And the one thing that I like to always tell you about, because look, we practice what we preach, because we're a Saliga family for 16, 17 years, and we've been in the Priority Club for a long time, and that's a maintenance program. So they'll come out a couple times a year. They'll check your air conditioning before it gets hot. They'll check your heating when you're in the fall and it's about to get real cold, just to make sure everything's okay. And what happens, if they find a little problem, and happened with us a couple of weeks ago, they fix it on the spot. It's no big deal. It's inexpensive. It's simple. But that little tweak, that little adjustment they make, it prevents something big from happening later. So this is the maintenance program extends the life of your equipment. So you're not always paying huge repair bills or having to buy equipment all the time. So if you invest in a preventative maintenance program called the Priority Club at Saliga, it is well worth your money. Believe me, take it from the Miklases, because it's worked for us beautifully. So check all that out by going to Saliga Heating and Cooling. That's SaligaHeatingandCooling.com.
The Bernie Miklas Report on KMOX is sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin comfort dealer.
When we started Neovitin back in 2009, we wanted to create a multivitamin that we would take
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Tomorrow night,
The Cards, the Royals,
Ameren Total Access 545.
Cardinals Radio, 104.1 FM, KMOX.
It's Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. Off night for the Cardinals. They're going to match up against Kansas City in Kansas City for a 3-game series that begins tomorrow. Speaking of Kansas City, last night, City SC, just a terrible result to be up 2-0 on Sporting KC and lose that match. And now they've got the quick turnaround as they're going to match up against Minnesota on the road coming up this weekend. Things are not going well for City SC, and we'll let Nate Buchanan talk a little bit about that. He joins us right now on the program. He is part of the team over at Apple TV and MLS Season Pass. He's going to be on the call this upcoming weekend. Nate, great to talk to you. Thanks for taking some time with us.
Hey, Matt, thank you for giving me a second chance to come on with you. You know, I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll focus more on this Minnesota match coming up that you're going to be on the call for. But you're a Kansas City guy. I mean, what a turn of events last night for both those teams, where City has a 2-0 lead and then all of a sudden Sporting storms back. I know people here in St. Louis are very, very frustrated and upset about what happened last night.
Yeah, you know, and I was actually calling a different game. I was in Nashville, Tennessee last night doing the Nashville New York Red Bulls game, but I was keeping an eye on that one. And then I watched all the press conferences back, listening to Olaf Melberg talk and Roman Berkey, and you could tell how I don't think it's lost on them that that's not the kind of performance the fans in St. Louis want to see, particularly when you're going up against your rival. And really, it's been a rough year for both teams, right? St. Louis and Sporting Kansas City to this point. So there's something going on with St. Louis where they've had a tough time. You know, when they've had leads, they haven't held them lately, and they've been giving up a lot of goals late in games, which is something they've got to get sorted out, because it's been 9 games without a win for St. Louis, and obviously they got to get that turned around.
What do you think leads to that?
Well, I listened to Olaf Melberg talk, and he said that he thinks that physical fitness and fatigue is an issue, which really raised my eyebrows, because you're talking about, 13 weeks into the season or 13 games into the season now. Now, part of that is because of the injuries. There's been a lot of injuries that all kind of hit at the same time for St. Louis, and then they had a lot of other players who were working their way back from injury at the start of the season, so maybe they haven't gotten into full fitness. But still, that's a real eyebrow raiser for me. There's something going on there if you feel like your team isn't fit enough to be able to close games out the right way. And I know Roman Berkey also said that he felt like the decision-making was really poor late in the game. You know, there's tactical awareness is an incredibly important aspect to the game of soccer. And the players that understand situations and when it's time to try to be aggressive with your passing and make risky passes versus when it's time to be a little more conservative and take care of the ball was something that he felt was really lacking in the game. And I asked Olaf about that. We had a chance to talk today, and I asked if the two things were related. You know, is it physical fatigue turning into mental errors? And he said absolutely. He feels like that's part of that's part of the equation, that when you're physically tired, mentally you make mistakes as well. So that's something they've got to get sorted out, and it's going to be difficult because the month of May for every team in Major League Soccer is a really, really crowded month. I mean, the games are coming fast and furious, so not a lot of time to go back to training and try to sort things out. You've kind of got to get it figured out on the pitch in match day, because, as you mentioned, I mean, God, they're turning right around, and they got 2 quick games back-to-back against Minnesota coming up.
There was a quote from one of the Sporting players after the match last night, and some of this is probably truthful, and some of it is probably kind of taking a dig at St. Louis because it's a solid rivalry between the two teams. But the quote was, "Can we play them every week? That may be good for me and good for the team." That's a pretty damning quote if you're City.
Well, I think you can take that 2 ways. I don't know which player said that.
It was Joe. Is it Jovic? Is that how you say his last name?
Dejan Jovic.
Yeah.
So he's new to this, but my takeaway from that is, that's speaking to something that's been a problem for Sporting Kansas City is I think what he's saying, at least, and maybe I'm inferring the wrong thing, but that is the team clearly gets up for this game against St. Louis, and that the team needs something to get them a little extra motivated. And, that's a problem to me if you're Kansas City. I think in a way you could say it's a compliment to St. Louis, because it means they're turned up for the rivalry. You know, there's a little extra juice. They know when they're going to play against St. Louis, and I give a lot of the St. Louis fans credit for that, because right out of the gates when this rivalry started, you know, there was a lot of red inside Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City, because there were a lot of St. Louis fans showing up and being proud. And I think that really set the tone. Sporting Kansas City's been around for a while, and they've never had a rivalry like this. And I think it's new to the team. And I think that in a way, I guess you could look at it and say, if he meant it because he doesn't think St. Louis is any good, so he wants to play him every week, that's a dig. But if he means it because Sporting Kansas City, it got a little extra out of them because they're fired up to play, then I think it's actually a compliment.
Kind of a weird dynamic coming up where it's going to be back-to-back games between these two teams, but one as an MLS regular season matchup, one as a U.S. Open Cup matchup. For City, I guess that probably doesn't really matter. They're just looking to put their best effort on the field and try to correct things against a Minnesota team that's pretty good.
Yeah, I asked Melberg about that when we spoke today, and he said, look, I'm not worried about the second one. I'm just worried about the first one, because we need to get a win. We need to get things turned around. I don't think he's under any illusions that this isn't good enough for what the St. Louis fans expect right now. And it's not good enough for what he expects from the team. But at the same time, they do have to manage it. It is a weird situation, like you said. I mean, like sometimes in the world of soccer, you'll see where two teams will play each other in a series, a home and away. But these are two games in two separate competitions, both in Minnesota. And one thing that adds another little layer to it is the two teams, like the MLS Next Pro teams for St. Louis and Minnesota, are also playing each other in Minnesota on Sunday. So St. Louis is traveling with their first team and their second team up to Minnesota for basically like a 3-game series. And they'll probably rotate some of those second team guys from the game over the weekend to the game in the U.S. Open Cup. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of the cat and mouse between the three matchups. It's not something that you see very often.
Last thing for you, I'm going to go off the soccer path for a second, because I know you're a Kansas City guy. This weekend, Cardinals are the hottest team in the National League. The Royals have had a really good run here recently before losing back-to-back series. Is there a buzz in Kansas City leading into this weekend series?
Yeah, there certainly is. I always used to laugh because, I felt like the baseball rivalry was one that Kansas City really wanted, and that, you tell me if I'm wrong, that people in St. Louis were kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
The St. Louis is always, they've had such a great tradition in baseball, and they've got their own rivalries with teams like the Cubs. And I think in Kansas City, it was always maybe meant a little bit more. But now that both teams are playing well, as you mentioned, maybe that gives it a little extra juice and should make it a lot of fun. That Royals team, they've got some really good pitching, and it's not like this dominant blow you away with a bunch of strikeouts. I mean, they do get some strikeouts, but not with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball type stuff. It's just got a bunch of guys that know how to pitch, and then they got Bobby Wood Jr. and a couple of decent hitters, and it's like they seem to get enough offense to win. They play good enough defense, and they get the pitching, and it makes them competitive. So should make for a really fun series.
No, you're right. And I've got a unique experience in this. I grew up in St. Louis. I went to college at Kansas State. So I have so many Kansas City friends, and I spent 2 years in the Royals organization broadcasting their low A team. So I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Royals because of that. But the way you described it is right on. And I would absolutely agree with what you said. Before we get you out of here, let's hear a little bit about the MLS season pass package, because obviously for folks who want to take in city games and the rest of the league, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and it's at a discounted rate now, so check that out as well. You can get a really good deal right now if you sign up for it. And the thing that is great about MLS Season Pass is that you get all the content. You get every game across the league. You get MLS 360. To me, is a great show. If you're a fan of a show like Red Zone in the NFL on Saturdays when maybe St. Louis aren't playing, Kevin Egan and the guys that do that show do a incredible job of whipping around to all the different games, and it really gives you a great picture of how much good talent there is in the league, and how much exciting action there is in the league too. I mean, the quality of play in this league just keeps getting better and better, which I think makes it fun as an announcer. And also, I think St. Louis fans are experiencing this now. You're not chasing a stationary target when you're trying to improve every year, right? Like, you're trying to improve at the same rate or better than all of the other teams that are spending more and more money in the league. So, yeah, I highly encourage everybody to check it out. MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Obviously, I'm biased there. I think it's great coverage, and I'm looking forward to calling this game. I think it's going to be a really good game. The thing about MLS, too, it also is that you never know from one week to the next what's going to happen. So St. Louis is in a bad stretch right now. They got some guys back. They're getting a little healthier. They could turn it around very quickly, and I would say that this match is one worth watching again this weekend against Minnesota. Minnesota's third place in the West. They're really good, but it would not stun me at all if St. Louis go up there and get a result. So it's worth watching.
He is Nate Bukaty. You follow him on Twitter at Nate_BUKATY. Nate, appreciate the time. Hopefully we can do this again down the line.
Anytime you want. I really appreciate you having me, and let's do it again soon.
Awesome. Very good. That's Nate Bukaty joining us. Appreciate him taking a couple moments with us. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the program. You're locked into a Gray Bar Sports Open Line on KMOX.
Tom Ackerman here, joining Busey Bank in recognizing
all that can be better with i3 broadband. i3 broadband is doing something really cool, by the way. Their entry level speed is 250 megabytes per second. For a lot of people, that is more than good enough. If you're just kind of a basic person in your home, you're streaming Netflix, you're connected to the internet, you're web surfing, that's going to be still really solid speeds. They mirror the upload and download speed. They'll lock you in at just $19.99 a month for a full year. You don't have to bundle. There's no contract. You're just locked in at that price, which is about $10 cheaper per month than the cable company. So that's $120 back in your pocket over the course of the year. Nobody's going to sneeze at that. If you want the larger packages like 2 gigs, 8 gigs, I've got the 2 gig package. They've got a 1 gig package. They've got all of that, and you're going to save money no matter what, depending on what system you're going to get. It's going to be a different level of money that you save. I know with the 2 gig package I have, I'm spending a whole lot less than I did when I had the cable company's 1 gig package, which wasn't even as fast as i3's 1 gig package. I'm talking in a bunch of numbers and everything. All I want you to know, they're a really good internet service. You should check them out for yourself. See if they're available in your neighborhood. i3broadband.com.
Farming's hard. To feed the world, farmers have to work the land.
Sorry, my trumpet's in the shop. The Missouri Lottery. Winners welcome and play responsibly.
Welcome back to the Gray Bar Sports Open Line. Once again, Matt Pauley on KMOX.
Just about done with hour number 1 of the program. Hour number 2 will be a strike zone hour, mostly Cardinals talk. During hour number 2, we are going to do a little bit with the Battlehawks, though, as one of their players is going to join us, Mike Rose, the quarterback of their defense, according to defensive coordinator Donnie Abraham. He's going to join us, Rose, in his 3rd season with the Battlehawks. We're playing some pretty good football right now, so he's going to join us coming up in just a little while. Bus sends in a message on our video chat, which I thought was interesting. We can maybe spend some more time on this coming up in a while. But basically asks about, what does this team do right now with Luken Baker? How do you get him back up for any considerable time this year? And says if you want to get any value out of him, he needs major league at bats. First off, issues like this tend to work themselves out. That's what I always say. Like, as baseball fans and baseball people, we easily get caught up like in the minutia of the day-to-day of what's going on. But when you take a step back and start looking at things from a more week-to-week, month-to-month standpoint, everything tends to just work itself out. That's one of the beautiful things about the game of baseball. But to the bigger point there, right now as it sits, there's not a pathway for Baker to be back on this team. And injuries can obviously change that. Bluntly, Joel Pozo's performance can change that, because right now the Cardinals are going with 3 catchers, but I like the idea of 3 catchers on the roster. I like the idea of focusing on Ivan Herrera as being your DH. So I don't know. I really like Luken. I think he is a major league player. I have no doubt in my mind that Luken Baker is a major league baseball player, and I do want to see him have that opportunity. I just don't know how and when it's going to come. I think that at the end of the day, it will be there because all those things tend to work themselves out. But we might discuss that a little bit more during the Strike Zone Hour. We'll talk more Cardinals baseball immediately following the 7 o'clock news. Don't go anywhere. You're locked into a Gray Bar Sports Open Line here on KMOX.
Now, 90 and 60. A look back at the latest St. Louis City SC match. Presented by Woods Basement Systems, Inc.
Hey, pushes in field to the left.
Focus for potential severe weather is to our south and southeast. The high temperature tomorrow, 91 degrees. The record 93 from 2001. Some storms fade tomorrow night, low 59. And for Saturday, sunshine and a high of 78. Right now, we've got clouds and 83 downtown at the Arch. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
Welcome to the Strike Zone, presented by Gray Bar. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs, on the voice of the Cardinals, 104.1 FM KMOX.
We are into the second hour, the 7 o'clock hour. It's a Gray Bar Sports Open Line. It is a Strike Zone hour of a Gray Bar Sports Open Line. We'll talk a lot of baseball. We will throw a little football in as well because we've got our weekly conversation with a Battle Hawk, as we're going to be joined coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We're going to be joined here on the program by a defensive player with the Battle Hawks, a guy who is known as the defensive quarterback, Mike Rose is going to join us coming up in just a little while. Cardinals have the day off. They are going to get back at it tomorrow with a 3-game series against the Royals. So I took some grief. I take grief every once in a while. I took some grief because before this road trip got started, I was concerned that the Cardinals were going to be playing the Royals as the third city on the trip. Because 3-city trips are a bear, man. They are tough. And it is not the most rare thing for you to see a team playing some pretty good baseball, going on a 3-city trip. Things go all right in the first couple series, and then just kind of the wheels start to fall off in the third city. I hope that doesn't happen. But I said, you know what? I think that's a possibility, and I think this is a Royals team that they should be able to have some success against. That's where I took grief. Like, I had somebody come at me on social media a little bit, basically saying, are you watching the Royals? Do you know what's going on with them? They've won 7 in a row. They've won 10 of their last 11. And this is where I get like painted into a corner a little bit, because I don't want to be dismissive of who the Royals are. And when we talk about like the Cardinals going on a win streak and they're playing a bunch of teams that are not great teams, you'll hear me say all the time, well, you can only play the teams that are on your schedule. So I don't like talking out of both sides of my mouth and starting to break down the Royals and how much of their success that they've had has been against not so great teams. But a lot of their success has been against not so great teams. I should have run these numbers with their last 2 series, because they lost each of their last 2 series. They were in a spot where they had won a bunch of games, and then these last 2 series for the Royals, they lost 2 of 3 to Houston, and they lost 2 of 3 to Boston. But before that, they had won most of their games. What I looked at, though, was what they had done against teams that are above 500 and teams that are below 500. So these numbers are not great right now, because they're not all the way up to date. But this is a Royals team. Look, the exact numbers don't matter. So basically, they've got most of their wins against teams below 500, and they have not been as good against teams above 500. So I was concerned about a team like the Cardinals taking on the Royals, who I think the Cardinals should have some success against, and not being able to, not working out that way. We'll see what happens. I like the fact that the Cardinals have an off day today. I think that mitigates a little bit the fact that they are indeed, playing the third city on this trip. Here's the other thing that I think is worth mentioning. Remember how much everybody was like freaking out and worried about the Cardinals' road record? And I'm not going to tell you it's great. They're 9-14 on the road, but they've won 5 of 6 on this road trip after they split that 4-game series against the Reds. And, Oliver Marmol was being asked about that on an everyday basis there for a while, because they had a terrible road record. There was a while there where they were only better than the Rockies and the White Sox in terms of what they were doing on the road. That's bad. That is very bad. I'm not trying to put lipstick on a pig. Where they were at was very, very bad in terms of their road record, but it was still really early on in the season. And it's just a reminder, and I'm not trying to, this is going to sound kind of like me being a jerk. It's really not meant that way. But it is a reminder that a lot of times early on in a baseball season, we get caught up in stuff that if you take a step back and you let things play out for a little bit longer, they're not really that big of a deal. It's going to correct. It's just the case of a tiny sample size. That's all it is. So, yeah, it's better. It's not great, right? Like, I understand they're still below 500. They're 9-14 on the road. That is not that's not a great road record, but they're a lot better. And Ali over and over and over said he wasn't worried about it. And it's just the case of early on. And it's kind of like he mentioned a couple times, last year they couldn't win a first game in a series for a while. And that's all that was being talked about. And it just kind of fixed itself. If something weird, like looks weird, then it's probably weird. Like if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? Like this looked like an oddity. This looked like something that just would not last. By the way, I found those exact numbers that I was looking for. This was before the Royals lost 4 of 6 against Houston and Boston. So prior to that, the Royals against teams that were 500 or above. So 500 record or above, they were 6-13. That was a 316 record. And then when they matched up against teams that were below 500, they were 17-3. That's an 850 winning percentage. So 74% of their wins before these last 2 series came against teams that were below 500. So that's just worth noting when taking a look at the Royals. And I'm not trying to sit here and denigrate the Royals. I have like I said this earlier, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Kansas City Royals. When you look at the American League Central, I like it when the Royals are good. I think that there's a good group of baseball fans in Kansas City. I spent some time working in the Royals organization previously in my career, so that has a lot to do with why I've got the soft spot for them. But this is a weekend where I think the Cardinals can have some success. And let's say the Cardinals take 2 of 3 from Kansas City, then all of a sudden this turns into a road trip where you go, what would that be? 7-2? A 7-2 road trip on a 3-city trip. If they can pull that off, and one of those teams in there was the Philadelphia Phillies, where you were able to take 2 of 3, like that's a fantastic road trip. That's really, really good. And the Cardinals are in a spot right now. We talk about taking advantage of the teams they're playing. So if I'm going to sit here and mention the fact that the Royals have been able to take advantage of playing lesser teams, well, then the Cardinals have to do that. And in many ways, that's why what they did against Pittsburgh was really good to see, because this is a Cardinals team that at times in recent years has maybe had some really good series against really good teams, and then all of a sudden they'll follow that up with a bit of a stinker against a team that you feel that they should be successful against. And when they had played at Pittsburgh earlier in the season, back in April, they lost 2 of 3, and you went into that was probably their low moment of the season. I mean, you think about where the Cardinals are at right now and where they were at from March 31st to April 9th. So that was a period of 9 games against the Angels, Boston, and Pittsburgh. You had 2 teams in there, in the Angels and Pittsburgh, that are 2 of the worst teams in baseball, just absolute worst teams in baseball. And you lost 4 of those 6 games. And then you play Boston, a legitimate team. You lose all 3 of those games, and you get beat handedly in 1 to 2 of them. One of them was that 13-9 loss where they kind of got themselves back in it, but you still gave up 13 runs. And then the other was a very one-sided game in 18-7, and they had the extra innings loss, which was a really tough, but probably the toughest loss of the year for the team when Helsley could not hold on to a lead. So you think about where the Cardinals were at that point, and you think where they're at right now, it feels completely and totally different. And now they're continuing on a run of playing some teams that you feel like they should have success against. You feel like they can win some games in Kansas City. Detroit's a really good team coming in. Arizona's a good team coming in. They're going to go to Baltimore, to Texas. Then they've got Kansas City again. But with all due respect to probably Detroit and Arizona, who are probably the best teams on the schedule in the immediate future. The next time you really play like an elite level team is there in June, early June, when you're going to have a 3-game series against the Dodgers. And even coming out of that, you have Toronto, Milwaukee, Chicago, Cincinnati, Chicago White Sox, I should say. So the schedule has certainly lightened up a little bit for the Cardinals, and that's good to see. We talked about this yesterday, not to the extent of the Cubs, who are in the middle of, like, I think just a historic run of matchups against terrible teams where they just played 3 against Miami. They'll get 3 against the White Sox, 3 more against Miami, 3 against Cincinnati, 3 against Colorado, 3 against Cincinnati, and 3 against Washington. That takes them to June 6th. That run of games over about a 3-week period, it does not get much easier than what the Cubs are going to have. So we'll see if any of those teams can maybe the Marlins should have taken 2 or 3 from the Cubs this past series. They had a lead late in that second game. They absolutely should have taken 2 of 3, but this is the Cubs are not going to be overly tested here over the next 2-3 weeks. We'll take a break. When we come back, we got some Battlehawks conversation as we are going to be joined coming up in just a moment or so by Mike Rose. He plays for the Battlehawks, defensive quarterback for the team. He's a linebacker. He's with us in just a moment. This is a Gray Bar Sports Open Line on KMOX.
At BOS, we help you bank boldly.
Associates, 314-966-5000 or youridoc.com.
Total Information AM, weekdays 5 to 9 on the voice of St. Louis, 104.1 FM, KMOX.
The Battlehawks have won 3 straight games. They sit with a record of 5-2. They are tied for first place in the XFL division of the UFL. They are on quite a run. They are coming off a solid win against Memphis on the road this past weekend, 19-9, and they are going to be back inside the Dome coming up on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be a 12 noon kickoff as they welcome in the Birmingham Stallions. And talking about welcoming them in, we are very happy to welcome on to the program. He is a linebacker with the Battlehawks in his 3rd season with the team, continues to put up good numbers, huge part of what he does defensively, called the defensive quarterback of the squad. We're happy to welcome Mike Rose on to the program. Mike, thanks for taking some time with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So team's playing some really good football right now. I know it was a bit of a slow start, but what has clicked in here over these last few weeks as the team has gone on a 3-game winning streak?
Yeah, I think it's been a maybe, I don't know if rough start's the right word to the season, but it's just other phases have been picking each other up. And I think as we get later into the season here, I still think we have a lot of room to grow and being like a 3-phase football team. But on this little win streak we've been on, I think it's kind of hard initially because you're in a shorter camp. You're just getting to know the guys and stuff. So I think as you get into this part of the season, you're going to be playing your best football.
It's interesting you say that because you're on your 3rd stint with the team, but at the same time, you've had NFL opportunities between each season with the Dolphins and with the Saints, and then you end up back with the Battlehawks. How does each season, maybe even more so here than other places you've been at, even though you're on the same team, does it feel different, just the nature of the beast, where there's going to be a lot of new pieces coming in on an every year basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been different every year, but I think we've more so than other teams, we've had more continuity from year to year, so it's made it easier. And I think our defense has been pretty solid since the start of the season, but I think a lot of that is just we probably have 10, 15 guys returning who maybe were even there year 1 too. But every year is different. You're always trying to fit new pieces in, but as leaders and as guys who've been in the system, you just kind of got to, bring people along with you.
It's I've never asked anybody from the team this, but it's probably especially applicable to you since you have gotten those NFL opportunities between each season. How challenging is it from a physical standpoint, from a body standpoint, to go through an entire season with the Battlehawks and then get a NFL training camp opportunity where that NFL training camps don't get started that long after the UFL season comes to an end? Is it challenging for your body to be ready for NFL training camp?
Yeah, I think it definitely plays into that a little bit. The 2 years that I've been in NFL camps, I've probably had about, a month to get my body right, which is, probably the least amount of time to, feel pretty good. So, that's definitely a factor. I think the biggest thing is, the 2 camps I've been in, I've been coming in probably, a week to a week and a half late in the camp. I think it's more of the, football is football, but, when these NFL installs and, these defenses, it's more just learning the terminology. I think the mental side is a little harder. Year 1, the first year in the XFL, it was an earlier season. So, a lot of guys had chances to get into OTAs and stuff like that. So I think, it's definitely physical, but I think mentally, it can definitely be a little more challenging.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you largely get that NFL opportunity because of your performance in the UFL season, but you've also got that short turnaround.
Yeah, 100%.
this team and just being part of the Battlehawks, and you're back at home this weekend, and we've repeated it a million times over of obviously the St. Louis fan base is so good. But from a defensive standpoint, what advantages do you guys have playing in St. Louis versus basically every other team in the league that does not draw the way St. Louis does?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly the biggest blessing of this whole league is just being able to, put that Battlehawks uniform on and, really get that, big time football feel. And I think it's as simple as, we feed off that energy. I mean, it gets really loud in the dome. And, as a defense, we feed off that, bringing the crowd into it on third down. But the biggest thing, man, it's just really fun, and it gets you excited to play football in a big atmosphere. So, and we thank the fans, and we're very blessed to have that opportunity every couple of weeks.
Have you gotten used to the whole train in one city and then fly in for the games thing? It's part of the business model for the league. And I think people sometimes forget that that's what you guys do. And it's got to be a challenge now in your third season in the league. Is it something that you've started to get used to?
Yeah, no, it's definitely just part of it now. Yeah, it's different, but I think, from a business side for the league to be sustainable, I think, it's a very smart call to do that. But, hopefully as the league grows and stuff, you could be in the city. But, Brian, our PR guy, he does a really good job at, just getting us involved, even when we come in for a day or two, getting us involved and trying to be in the community as much as possible. But yeah, I think, like I said, like as the league grows, to be more in the city and, live the life in the city you're playing for will be a cool thing.
Yeah, you mentioned there was a Cardinal game here recently where it was Battlehawks night, and a bunch of guys were out there. And there's other events that you guys go and do. And you mentioned Brian Stull, who's fantastic and helps us get these interviews on an every week basis. But it's pretty remarkable what you guys are able to do as a team. And I don't know if it's like this in every single market, but the fact that you can be so involved in St. Louis while only being here for a day or two, basically every other week, it's pretty impressive the amount of effort you guys put in to make that happen.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just important to us. It's almost a way to, give back and, give as much thanks as you can for, the fans showing up week in and week out. And anything in life, it's cool to give back when, you have those opportunities.
Battlehawks are in action Saturday, 12 noon. You'll definitely want to check out this game over at the Dome. Tickets are still available. You can go to theufl.com, get to the Battlehawks page. From there, get to the schedule page, and right there you'll see the link where you can buy tickets. And if you've yet to experience a Battlehawks game, I would encourage you to do so. It's a whole lot of fun, and it's great having football here in St. Louis. Again, Mike Rose joining us on the program. Mike, thanks so much for taking some time. Best of luck this weekend and the rest of the way, and hopefully we can talk to you again down the line.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Very good. That's Mike Rose joining us, who's putting together a really good season. He's third in the team in tackles this year. He's got 32 tackles. This is a guy, man. I don't know if you remember him as a college football player. He played at Iowa State. He was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year as a junior. And has had NFL opportunities with the Chiefs, with the Dolphins, with the Saints, still trying to, latch on with the team and stick around. I hadn't really thought about it, though, until what really got me thinking about it when I was looking at kind of his storyline is the fact that he's gone to NFL camps each of the last 2 years after his 2 Battlehawk seasons. Man, you hear about guys in the NFL, how it's 3 months before their body has fully recovered from the season. Sometimes guys' bodies don't recover at all. And with the schedule that the UFL has right now, like he mentioned, if you do get the NFL opportunity, you're going to miss OTAs, you're going to miss mini camp, things like that, things that are going on essentially right now. And then you're going to have like a month between the Battlehawk season or the UFL season coming to an end and then going into camp. And if you're like him, you're coming in late when it comes to the install and everything. So that's tough. But the other side of that is obviously you're getting the NFL opportunity because of the performance that you put together in the UFL. And I think we're seeing more and more guys stick around. And I hope that as the league continues to grow, there can be more of a part. It feels like the NFL is more open to this version of spring football than any other version. There's legal challenges when it comes to how much connection you can have because there's a collective bargaining agreement. You can't go assign teams or assign players to a team in the UFL. That goes against CBAs and things like that. Like, it would be great. It would be fantastic if you could take players who are on NFL offseason 90-man rosters and get them in the UFL to get them some experience. And maybe at some point in time in the future, when the NFL is going through their collective bargaining agreement, if the UFL can stick around, and we hope they can, maybe some sort of clause can be written in that if you play less than a certain amount of snaps or less than a certain amount of games during the season, you're eligible for UFL placement if it's something that you are okay with. Like, I don't know what it would look like, but it would be cool if the UFL could grow to a point where the NFL could have more of an official partnership with them. But even as it is right now, it feels like they're more open to them than they have been previously. What's on Deck is presented by Chesterfield Fence and Deck. The sign you have the very best. In addition to the Battlehawks being in action this weekend, we do have Cardinals baseball. The Cardinals are going to be in Kansas City for a 3-game series against the Royals. Game 1 is coming up tomorrow night. That's going to be a 6:40 first pitch. They'll play 6:10 on Friday and then 1:10 coming up on Sunday afternoon before the team is back home. Good homestand next week, by the way. Sidebar on that, really good homestand. I hope that, something that there's been a lot of talk on social media here recently is how much will this good run that we've seen from the Cardinals here recently result in better attendance at home games. I hope there is some cause and effect when it comes to that. I hope we do see somewhat larger crowds at Busch Stadium next week. But the teams that they're going to match up against, they may not be like the sexiest teams in terms of their names, but when you look at who they are, Detroit is a legit good team. Of course, they went on that run last season after the trade deadline, got into the postseason, and they've had a really solid start to their year. And then Arizona is a really good team as well. So those are the two teams that the Cardinals are going to match up against at home this upcoming week. But first, they have to get through these final 3 games of this 3-city road trip. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more Cardinals baseball. If you want to get in here, by the way, talking Cardinals, you can do so. We will take your phone calls, your text messages at 314-436-7900. That's 314-436-7900. If anything is on your mind connected to the Cardinals, we will gladly take those phone calls. You can also tweet at me at Matt Pauley on air. You can leave a message on the video chat. We're talking Cardinals baseball here until the end of the show at 8 o'clock. It's a Gray Bar Sports Open Line on KMOX.
This is Tom Ackerman, like a Hall of Fame talent, an MVP. Chesterfield Fence and Deck has been going for 57 years strong now.
Morning every Tuesday at noon. Sponsored by Seidman Cancer Center on the voice of the Cardinals. 104.1 FM, KMOX.
It's a Great Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. It is a Strike Zone hour. Glad to have you with us. Again, if you want to chime in on anything Cardinals related, we welcome your phone calls, your text messages, your tweets, and also your messages on the video chat. If you want to call or text, the phone number is 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. That's how you call. That's how you text. You can tweet at me, at Matt Pauley on air, MattPauley on air. Or as I mentioned, if you are watching us on any of our video channels where this video is going out on, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, just leave a message on the chat and we will address that as we go along through the program. You know, I mentioned this earlier and it wasn't something that I really talked much about because it didn't matter until you started feeling like this was a Cardinals team that had the opportunity to contend a little bit. And I'm not trying to put the cart in front of the horse. We've still got to see this thing play out. A good 2-week run doesn't make a season. At the same time, a lot of what we're seeing from this team seems sustainable up to a certain extent. Like I said this earlier during the Redbird Rush Hour. I don't think we're going to see a run through the 5-man rotation where 3 of the 5 starters give you 23 combined innings, which is what you saw when you had back-to-back 7-inning games combined with a complete game. Like that's something that if it does happen again, it's not going to happen very often, and that's not something you can rely on. But can you rely on this starting rotation continuing to pitch to a level where they keep you in games? Yeah, you can. Ivan Herrera, tiny sample size. Is Herrera going to be a 1,300 OPS guy at the end of the season? Of course not. That is unsustainable. But can he be a 900 OPS guy, over 800, well over 800, somewhere in there? That's, last year he was at 800 in his, can he improve upon that? He's got a career 832. So yeah, he's not going to be at 1,300 at the end of the year. That's part of small sample size theater right there, but he can have really, really good numbers. I think we've seen enough from Ivan Herrera to say that his production is real. And you can go up and down. Like Brendan Donovan is having a really good season. And I think we all knew that Donovan was a good player. He is exceeding expectations this year. Even if he starts to come off of that a little bit, you're still going to see good numbers from Brendan Donovan. And it continues to amaze me. And this is the area that I got it wrong, but basically everybody got it wrong. We collectively as a group of people who watch the Cardinals, we collectively said this is going to be the season where as Jordan Walker and as Nolan Gorman goes, that's how the Cardinals are going to go. And through 1 quarter of a season with tons of baseball left in the year, we've been completely wrong on that because Walker offensively has not performed. Gorman offensively has not performed, and the Cardinals have. The Cardinals have played really good, respectable, above 500 contending baseball. That's who they've been. And we're all sitting here going, is this real? And then when we try to answer the is this real question, that's when we start looking at like the various individual performances and whether or not it's going to be sustainable. And I think the key thing here, just the guys that I just mentioned, the key thing here is that even guys who are performing at a super high level, what's going to be the expectation of them when they start to come back to earth a little bit? And I still think it's going to be pretty good. Now, is it worth talking about Sonny Gray and the home road thing? Because that was something that was real last year. And then he really struggled yesterday. So that's something that can kind of pop up on the radar a little bit as we watch Gray moving forward. That being said, the other side of that is you can't put too much stock into what happened yesterday, because that's a really good Philadelphia team that just seemed to be on point. But going back on the other side, like, I can argue both points of these things. On the other side, the bullpen was fantastic yesterday. Bullpen was really good in the second game, where they turned that from just this crazy drunk game where it was home run after home run after home run. Like, at one point on the broadcast, when John and Ricky were talking, they said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the last home run today," and everybody felt that way. I agreed with them 100%. And then I think it was. I don't think another home run was hit after. And that's not me saying they were wrong. That was me saying that the bullpen came in and did a really good job of stabilizing what was going on. So a belief that was shared by everybody just by watching that game and seeing the craziness that was going on. I mean, when the Cardinals got to 9 runs, I think it was 9-7 at that point, I tweeted out, first team to 20 is going to win this game, because it was the 4th or 5th inning and the Cardinals were sitting there with 9 runs. So the game felt like it was going to be an absolutely wild run-scoring, extravaganza of craziness, and it settled down a little bit. And you do give credit to the bullpen. In fact, if we want to, offensively, the Cardinals have been pretty good all season. From a starting pitching standpoint, they've been pretty good all season. So if we want to find a place to give credit to the Cardinals for what has led to this surge recently, to this winning streak, it's the bullpen and the performance of the bullpen. Some people use the term the rebuilt bullpen. I don't know if it's rebuilt, but I think it's maybe reallocated, because you've always had 3 guys at the back end of the bullpen who you've really trusted in Leahy, Maton, and Helsley. There was some pressure on the organization and on the team to not use those guys as much, specifically to Leahy and Maton. That wasn't an issue with Helsley, because they weren't getting it to a point where Helsley was holding on to a run of 3 runs or less. But from a team standpoint, and this is where you always have to look at things that are, from a team standpoint and not just on like a general like baseball belief standpoint, because generally speaking, starting pitching is always more valuable. I say always, almost always more valuable than relief pitching. Well, the Cardinals are proving that wrong a little bit right now, because they didn't really have a spot for Matz in the rotation, because they had other guys who were doing the job. And even if I think we can all agree that Steven Matz, there's a likelihood that he would be better in the rotation than Miles Michaelis. But I would contend that Michaelis is not somebody that you want in the bullpen, where you are comfortable having Matz in the bullpen. So you create the best possible team based upon different roles. So even though from an individual standpoint, Steven Matz might be better in the rotation than he is in the bullpen, from a team standpoint, Steven Matz does more for you in the bullpen because of you needing some success in that area. So it's been fun to watch this bullpen be put together, where yes, you have those 3 final guys that you can trust, but then you add Steven Matz, and then again, the jury's out on this one. Let's continue to monitor this. Let's continue to watch how it plays out. But at least for the moment, Gordon Graceffo looks really good there at the back end, and it feels like he's finding some extra velocity on his pitches. So that's key. I've always thought he's built, not always, like over the last year plus, I've thought that Gordon Graceffo was built to be more of a reliever than a starter at the major league level. And we're starting to see that. And you feel like that he can have some type of impact there. What they've done with JoJo Romero, very, very slowly. This is another great example of making sure that you put guys in the right position to get them back going. And they're not always great with they wanted to do that with Ryan Fernandez, and they were unable to do so because of the type of games that they were playing when Fernandez was still on the team. They couldn't really put him in the positions where he can find some success. So eventually they had to get him to Memphis. Whereas with JoJo Romero, they've done a really, really good job of finding spots for him and not trying to push him too much. When you look at his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a bunch of outings, But he okay, let's just look specifically. He has not given up a run in his last 6 outings. Of those 6 outings, 4 of them, he has gone less than an inning. And that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. That's getting him in there to close out innings, and he effectively does it. And then you let him have his success, and he gets out of there after that. So it's a really important thing when you look and see why the Cardinals are having success right now. What has led to it? Well, the bullpen is a big part of that, and health is obviously a big part of it as well. As let's build the future, brought to you by Gray Bar. Gray Bar is headquartered in St. Louis. It's a great place to work. I've mentioned this a few times. Beyond Michael McGreevy, the Cardinals don't have a lot in the starting rotation right now at Memphis. So they've got to health is really, really key, because there's not a whole lot coming for that future. If they have a need for 2 starting pitchers, McGreevy's the guy. You probably have to take Matz out of the bullpen, so that weakens the bullpen. It's just really key that they continue to stay as healthy as possible. We're going to do one more break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this edition of the program. My name is Matt Pauley. This is the Gray Bar Sports Open Line on KMOX.
You are a successful electrical contractor, but you plus a dedicated team supporting your project from day one? That's taking your productivity to the next level. And Gray Bar can help you get there. Your relationships plus our relationships.
.edu.
Now, back to the Strike Zone, presented by Gray Bar on the voice of the Cardinals, 104.1 FM, KMOX.
I like this tune. I'm digging this. For those of you watching on the video, I got the solid head bob going. I'm not much of a dancer. I can head bob with the best of them, but you ask me to do anything more than that, it's not good. Kyle Sixtus here. Kyle, are you a dancer? Do you dance at all?
You're lucky you've never seen me bust a move. I'm terrible.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm so bad.
Before I got married, like I am not a dancer. I don't have the body to be a dancer, like none of it. But we wanted to like make a splash at the wedding reception. So my now wife and I, when we were engaged, we took dancing lessons for like a month and a half leading up to the wedding, just learning one dance for one song. So our first dance could be really good. And we rocked it. It was good.
Yeah. I feel like that's what most people do.
Do they?
I think so.
Okay. I wanted it to be good. I've been to weddings where it's just kind of the swing back and forth and, staring each other's eyes sort of thing. No, that's not a show. We got to put on a show here. So yeah, that's what we did.
Right. I think people practice their first dance like that, at their wedding.
Yeah.
I think so.
So there you go. That's what we did. We felt good about it. And there we did. It was to Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Very nice.
The Lion King. So the Elton John version of it. Yeah. But yes, that was feels like a long time ago, but that's what we did. It's a Gray Bar Sports Open Line, believe it or not, based off the conversation we're having right now. It is a Gray Bar Sports Open Line right here on KMOX. Again, a Cardinals off night. We are going to have a replay of the Gas House game beginning after the 8:00 news. Chris Ranji, I believe Nate Gander was in today for the 12 o'clock hour, and they've got a conversation with Matt Carpenter. There's been a lot I had a friend text me yesterday. We had conversations about this yesterday. A lot of talk about, is Matt Carpenter a Cardinals Hall of Famer? I think he is. He might have to wait in line a little bit. Obviously, there's some guys, Pujols, Molina, Wainwright, that are going to be in front of him. And I think the only reason that maybe we have this conversation, and for some people, it's not like this clear and obvious yes, is because his last couple years before he came back, and even last year wasn't great, but his final couple years were not especially good. He had a pretty massive fall off there at the end of his career, or at least of his end of his first Cardinals tenure, because he had that resurgence, that really special time. Yeah, I remember when he came back into St. Louis as a member of the Yankees, and he was having just this amazing season at that point. That was a really cool moment for all parties involved, especially not knowing at the time that he would eventually return to the team as a player. But I mean, you look at his numbers, you look at the fact that he was a top 10 MVP guy twice, top 12 3 times, multiple time All-Star, Silver Slugger, top 10 in Rookie of the Year voting. Yeah, he's a Cardinal Hall of Famer at some point. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I have no doubt whatsoever that he is a Cardinal Hall of Famer. We'll talk to you tomorrow for Redbird Rush Hour and Cardinals baseball right here on KMOX.
For your best vision, visit the Doctors of Ophthalmology.